Welcome to this edition of The Deep Dive. We're from the Nepalese Diaspora Network,
That's right.
and we've sifted through quite a stack of sources to bring you the key happenings in Nepal. Think of it like the network's recent digest, but in conversation form.
Exactly. And our aim today really is to give you a clear picture of the big events in Nepal, hopefully in about 20 minutes or so.
Yep. And just a quick note before we start, you'll hear us using the pronunciation Nepalese throughout our chat today.
Okay, so where shall we begin? There's been a lot going on.
Let's start with that major climate conference in Kathmandu, the Sagarmatha Sambaad. That felt pretty significant.
Oh, absolutely. A really critical global conversation. It ran May 16th to 18th, just now in 2025.
And the theme was climate change, mountains, and the future of humanity. Pretty heavy stuff.
It is, and it really positions Nepal as, taking a lead on this. It's their big global dialogue initiative.
The opening sounded powerful. Prime Minister Oli had that quote, didn't he?
He did. Really strong. From the lap of Sagarmatha, we send this message loud and clear that to protect the mountains is to protect the planet.
To protect the mountains is to protect our seas. To protect the mountains is to protect humanity itself. Wow. Sets a clear tone.
Definitely. And he also talked about the worrying trend of increasing global distrust.
And weakening multilateralism, yeah. He framed the Sambaad as kind of pushing back against that.
Exactly. And he brought in Nepal's heritage too, land of Buddha, knowledge, peace. Even that ancient saying, Vade Jayate Tattva Buddha.
What it means?
Discussion begets understanding of truth. The idea that talking things through leads to real insight.
Nice. And the foreign minister, Arzurana Doba, she also weighed in at the start.
Yes, she welcomed everyone, stressed the need for, meaningful discussions to solve these huge climate challenges.
And she really highlighted Nepal's vulnerability, right? Which came up again and again.
It had to, because a core issue, a really alarming one, is the speed of glacier melt in the Himalayas.
I saw the figures. Scientists warning of up to 80% loss. That's just staggering.
It really is. And it's not some abstract thing for the future. It means immediate risks. Rock slides, landslides, avalanches.
Foreign Minister Duba called it an unprecedented stress test for the Himalayas.
She did. And she pointed a finger, too, at the lack of meaningful global climate action.
You can see why. Nepal's already dealing with the impacts, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Floods, those glacial-late outburst floods, GLOFs, terrible droughts, water shortages, forest fires. It's happening now.
And it wasn't just Nepal talking to itself. Ministers from India, Bhutan, the Maldives were there.
That's crucial. It shows it's a regional issue, demands regional and global attention. They're planning a Kathmandu declaration, too.
Suggests they want concrete outcomes.
Definitely. PM O'Leal also made a point about mountain issues often being ignored internationally.
And the need for reliable climate finance. That came up a lot.
Yes. He talked about the need for certainty around climate finance. And, the Himalayas aren't just mountains. They regulate the planet's cold systems, impact the oceans.
It's all linked, so easier access to the Climate Damage Fund is key.
Crucial. And more global cooperation for Nepal's own efforts to mitigate and adapt.
It was good to see the COP29 president, Mukhtar Babayev, was there and praised Nepal's initiative.
Yeah, recognition helps. And India's Environment Minister, Bhupender Yadav, made a really strong point, too.
What was that?
That South Asia is hit hardest by climate change, even though it contributes relatively little to emissions.
A classic climate justice issue.
Exactly. So he called for more climate finance, better technology transfer, invoking that idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
The world is one family. A powerful message in this context.
It is. And China also spoke about protecting Everest and helping developing countries with climate change. So there was a sense of shared concern, at least.
Did Nepal announce any new commitments of its own?
Yes, a big one. Net zero emissions by 2045.
Wow, 2045. That's quite ambitious ahead of the global curve.
It is. And they also formally approved their biennial transparency report, that's the climate action reporting, and their third NDC, the Nationally Determined Contribution Plan, both announced right there at the Sambaad.
Shows follow through. Any other agreements?
There was also an ATU signed between Nepal and India on biodiversity conservation, so cooperation on that front too.
Let's dig a bit deeper into the glaciers and water issue. You mentioned the fast melting.
Right. The temperature rise in the Nepalese Himalayas is outpacing the global average, and that directly fuels glacier retreat and ice loss.
And the main risk from that is these GLOFs, glacial lake outburst floods.
That's one of the biggest, most immediate dangers. As glaciers melt, the lakes behind them grow. More lakes, bigger lakes.
How many are we talking about?
Estimates are over 2,000 glacial lakes just in Nepal. Many are unstable, posing a serious threat downstream.
It sounds terrifying, but is there any upside? I mean, all that water.
Well, that's the paradox, isn't it? These glaciers, these lakes, they could be resources for irrigation, maybe small hydro projects.
And tourism, pilgrimage sites, maybe even winter sports eventually.
Potentially, yes. It's this strange mix of immense risk and potential opportunity, which is why monitoring is so vital.
Using technology like remote sensing
Hmm.
and on-the-ground stations.
Exactly. To build better early warning systems, you need to know what's happening up there.
So thinking about the Sambaad overall, its unique role seems to be bridging that gap between mountain countries and global climate policy.
Precisely. It's not like the Resina dialogue, which is geopolitics, or Davos, which is economy. This is laser focused on mountain ecology, climate resilience.
And the sessions reflected that focus.
Absolutely. 5 main themes: linking mountains to oceans, the green economy, loss and damage, climate justice, partnerships.
Plus more specific sessions.
Yeah, 12 parallel sessions on things like glacier preservation, food security in the mountains, using indigenous knowledge, climate finance details, really covering the gamut.
And even without heads of state, having India's environment minister, China's NPC vice chair, the COP29 president, that signals real weight.
It does. It shows the issue is being taken seriously at high levels. And the outcome they're aiming for is that Kathmandu Declaration.
Setting out commitments for sustainable mountain development, better climate adaptation.
Right. Nepal's really trying to carve out a role as a thought leader in mountain climate diplomacy, and frankly, it needs to.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the economy. There was a pretty striking number about the informal economy.
Huge number, estimated at 51% of GDP. 51%.
Wow, that's way higher than the global average, isn't it?
Far higher. And the drivers are things like smuggling, corruption, just tons of transactions happening off the books.
Which must make things difficult for the government.
Absolutely. Hits revenue collection hard, makes proper economic planning really challenging.
But on the other hand, remittances are still strong.
They are, up 10%, reaching over 11,191 billion Nepalese rupees in just 9 months. It's still that vital economic shock absorber.
But there's a tragic side to that story, too.
There always is, sadly. In that same period, 584 migrant workers died or were injured abroad.
That's awful. And compensation was paid out.
About 662 million rupees. It just highlights the immense human cost behind those remittance figures.
What about government finances internally? Any updates there?
A couple of concerns flagged. Development budget spending is still lagging, only 34% spent with just 2 months left in the fiscal year.
That's quite low.
It is. And government arrears, basically unpaid bills, have ballooned to over 733 billion rupees. That suggests some financial irregularities or at least management issues.
Okay. Anything else on the economic front?
Just briefly, the Nepal Electricity Authority is giving industries more time to sort out outstanding electricity dues. That's been an ongoing issue.
Right. And something about ride sharing.
Yeah, Gandaki province has actually legalized ride-sharing services. Bagmati province, where Kathmandu is expected to follow.
So bringing services like Pathao and Tootle under regulation.
Exactly. Regulation, taxation, though, as you'd expect, the traditional taxi and transport operators are pushing back against it.
Makes sense. Okay, let's turn to politics. Big news on the federal civil service bill.
Yes, finally some real progress. It passed a parliamentary committee. This is huge because implementing administrative federalism has been pending for, nearly a decade since the Constitution.
Wow. So what are the key changes in the bill?
Couple of big ones agreed upon: raising the retirement age for civil servants to 60,
Okay.
and introducing a 2-year cooling-off period before retired civil servants can take up constitutional posts.
To prevent conflicts of interest, presumably.
That's the idea. Also, they're bringing back the position of additional secretary in the bureaucracy.
Interesting. What about accountability? Any movement on corruption cases?
Yes, the CIAA, the anti-corruption body, filed charges in the Terramarks case.
Ah, the telecom monitoring system scandal.
That's the one. Charges against a former minister and 15 others. They're seeking massive damages, over 3.21 billion rupees.
On what grounds?
Allegations of bypassing regulations, not doing proper feasibility studies. Basically, major irregularities in the procurement process.
Seems like a significant case. Any diplomatic activity?
Usual run of meetings. PM Oli met with the Chinese NPC vice chair, also a Russian delegation.
And Foreign Minister Rana.
Still working on the Bipin Joshi case, meeting with Qatar's envoy about his release, that's ongoing.
Anything happening within the political parties?
Some internal friction reported in the Maoist center down in Sudarpasham province. Seems there's disagreement over who should be the assembly leader. Defying party directives suggests some power struggles.
And the NRB governor position.
PM Oli said publicly they'll appoint someone capable based on meritocracy. We'll see who gets the nod.
Right. And the Auditor General's report is out.
Submitted to the president, yes. That usually brings government spending under the microscope, so we might hear more findings from that soon.
Okay, just a few quick social and cultural points before we wrap up. Health education.
Growing calls to make it mandatory in secondary schools. The concern is low awareness among teenagers about sexual health.
Seems sensible. And Muktanaf.
Initiatives to develop it further as a major religious tourism hub in Mustang. Attract more visitors, encourage longer stays.
Okay. And Everest. Same old story.
Unfortunately, yes. Fears of gridlock are back. The weather's been unpredictable, narrowing the summit window.
Which leads to dangerous overcrowding.
Exactly. A perennial problem.
Let's end on a positive note, though. Women's cricket.
Yes. The Nepal women's team made it to the Super 3 stage of the ICC T20 World Cup Asia qualifier.
That's great. How did they manage?
Well, partly helped by rain washing out a key match, giving them a favorable result. But hey, they're through. Now they face tougher teams.
Good luck to them. Okay, so looking back at everything we've discussed.
It really paints a picture of Nepal grappling with major interconnected issues, doesn't it? Climate change impacting everything, the economy trying to find its footing, political processes slowly moving.
Absolutely. It's complex. And this has just been a snapshot, of course. There's much more detail out there.
We definitely encourage you, our listeners, to explore these topics further if something caught your attention.
And before we go, a quick word for our listeners based in the UK. If you're part of the Nepalese diaspora there, do check out balayat.uk.
Yeah, it's a great classified site. Jobs, housing, events, businesses owned by Nepalese in the UK. Really useful resource, balayat.uk.
And for everyone, for more news, views, and insights tailored for the global Nepalese diaspora, the place to go is nepaladiaspora.net.
Keep up to date there.
So, to leave you with a final thought, we talked about the importance of remittances, but also the urgency of climate action in Nepal.
Two huge forces shaping the country.
So the question is, how can the global Nepalese diaspora, with its skills, resources, and connections, play an even greater role in supporting Nepal's journey towards long-term sustainable development and climate resilience?
That's definitely something worth pondering. How can that connection be leveraged even more effectively?
Indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.